Hello everyone, my name is Melanie Harris-Barber and I am the author of Atypical Journey. Now, I'm going to give you some insight about why I chose to write Atypical Journey. So I'll take you to the beginning. First, I wrote this book when I was let go from my job. So what I decided to do was, I said, listen, I've got to finish this book simply because I've always loved to write. But at that particular moment, back in 2013, it gave me a chance to really finish what I had always wanted to do, which was to write a book. Now, when I sat down to write Atypical Journey, I went through a whole phase full of emotions. I was so emotional because initially I wanted the book to reflect my life. But when I thought about it, even though I've had some challenges in my life, I wanted to impact people more so with other stories that they could relate to. So it was important to me to really capture that. When I really thought about the title, Atypical Journey, it really took me a while to really zone in on the title that I wanted, because I wanted it to be powerful enough just by looking at the title that readers would want to pick it up and read it. Usually when people see the word A and then typical, they look at it as if it's two different words. However, atypical, the one word, it means not typical. And that is what this book is about. It's about 10 different women who have gone through some things and their stories are not typical. My own personal story is in here, but again, I didn't want to just focus on my story because the women who I have encountered in my lifetime have had some amazing stories to learn from. So I leaned towards them and their stories to put in my book, to not only just give a story, but to be impactful in a positive manner. I really want to empower women, just to give them a message that says, even though I have gone through this, I don't have to stay in this valley. I have to climb out the valley and get to the hills, because that's where you belong, in the hills. So I really wanted to encompass that when I wrote the book. Now, in saying that, I'm going to give you just a brief description of each woman in this book. The first woman is Naima. Now, Naima's story is a story that we shouldn't have to tell, but unfortunately we do. Naima was molested by a family member, and she had to carry that for the duration of her life. And it kind of came out in ways that the average person wouldn't understand. But Naima's story, out of all the stories, I think her story is very touching, because a lot of times when things like that happen to children, they do not know how to cope. And coping, sometimes when it happens to people, that means you go and find something else to ease the pain. So Naima's story is, again, a very heartfelt story. But again, when she grows older, she is a woman who has triumphed in so many ways. But I guarantee you her story will definitely touch your heart. The next story is Tyra. Now, Tyra Story, if I had to put a phrase or a word around it, I would say that Tyra did not understand what being a woman epitomizes. Now, Tyra used her body, sex, to get what she wanted. But at the end, what she got was a far cry from what she had ever imagined that she would get. Her story is drama-filled, but unfortunately, her story tells the truth of what has happened in so many other girls' and women's lives. But Tyra was strong, and she did endure. The next story is about Corona. Now, Corona seemed to have it all. She had the money, she had the degree, she had the house on the hill, and the car that everybody in her community wanted. Corona was on her A game. But when you're on your A game as a woman, sometimes you think that you don't need anyone. You think that you can do it all by yourself. And when people try to love you, guess what? They can't because of you. Because you have built this wall. And because you think you're high and mighty, you don't need anyone. But Corona learned a lesson, and my God, what a lesson she learned. Now, Candace. Candace, if I had to say, she was the one that wanted more. She wasn't satisfied with her life, so she advanced to live in the city, and she wanted to live the city life. But I don't think Candace was ready for that type of life, because a lot of times it comes along with people that are really foes, you know. And I just don't think she was prepared. And she wasn't. Candace, unfortunately, got hooked up with a guy. And the road that he took her down, let's just say, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Soraya. Now, Soraya, her story to me is one that people in the African American community have to deal with a lot. It's the light skin, dark skin issue. Soraya's story to me is so deep in so many different ways because it shows the psychological damage that we still have as a community. Soraya was the darkest girl in her school, and because she was dark-skinned, she was bullied, she was teased, she was picked on, and it's shameful. But Soraya had the best girlfriend in the world, Melissa. Melissa loved Soraya, loved her. And I think in a lot of ways, Melissa was sent on this earth just for Soraya. But sometimes when God sends an angel, he calls that angel home. Soraya's story is so deep in so many levels, so many levels. Yeah, it's deep. Chanel. Chanel seemed to have it all. She did everything right. She had a loving mother and father. They lived in a nice middle-class neighborhood. Dad was his own boss. So they had it all. She seemed to have it all. She went off to college, did exactly what she was supposed to do. She did exactly what she was supposed to do. She got married and had a little boy. But guess what? She did not know who she was marrying. Chanel's story will rock you in so many ways, because the only thing that you will be left with is she did everything right. Why did this happen to her? Unfortunately, her story is just like a lot of women's stories out here. You do everything right, but bad things happen. Lola. Lola's story is sad in so many different ways, but it's because of her own undoing. When a woman thinks that she can have anything she wants by way of having sex with whomever to put a price tag on it so that she can have any and everything that she desires, eventually she'll hit a brick wall. The reason is because sex only goes but so far. Sometimes when you do that type of thing, at one point in your life, you're going to realize that, oh my gosh, is this what I have been reduced to? I have a price tag hanging off of me. And that's what happened to her. She lost her dignity in a way that will make you definitely say, wow, what a way to lose your dignity. But at the same time, as she lost her dignity, she woke up. She woke up. Tiffany. Attractive women have to endure things like this all of the time, and I think that it's sad. Sometimes when you're attractive, you automatically have 3 strikes that are against you. And don't let you be attractive and successful. And that's what Tiffany had to endure. But guess what? Tiffany had a friend, and he was gay. He was gay. But I tell you, sometimes in life, we throw what I call boomerangs, you know? And and a boomerang, it goes out and it comes back in. And that's kind of what happened with Tiffany. Unfortunately, you know, she was cast aside and blackballed just because she was attractive. But guess what? That's the exact same thing that she did to her best friend. Just because he was gay. So her story is powerful. It's powerful because sometimes we throw stones, but yet we live in glass houses. Phaedra's story is a story of being pushed to the edge. Phaedra is being stalked, but her stalker is a woman, has no sexual ties, at least not with Phaedra. But Phaedra, just imagine a mother who does exactly what she needs to do. She goes to work, she comes home, she takes care of her family. And because there was an indiscretion on behalf of her husband, or so it seemed, she inherited a crazy stalker who pushed her to the brink, to the edge. Phaedra's story is so deep simply because with technology as it is today, stalkers and bullies think that they can get away with it because law enforcement, they don't have time, and you know, it's ambiguous, and you know, and things like that. But they are so wrong. They're so wrong. But her story is interesting, to say the least, simply because she had to endure years of this person stalking her. And so when she snapped, she snapped. Sabrina's story is sad, to say the least. But just imagine you have a childhood friend that knows just about all about you and vice versa. And for whatever reason, that friend turns on you. But nothing that's just out there. Slowly but surely, they stop communicating, maybe stop hanging out, just slowly but surely stop being your friend. And then all of a sudden, you get a message via social media. And the message is something that you can't even comprehend. The message is so unreal. It really takes you a few days to digest it. And then you start to think, all of these years, this person has been a sheep in wolf's clothing. This story to me is so deep because as human beings, we try to fit in where we can. We try to be with people who are like us in some kind of way. And when you fit in with the wrong type of people, the wrong crowd, as they say, and you find out some things about people, and depending on how long the relationship was, it can really be a stab, like a stab in the heart. So that's what Sabrina had to deal with. She really had to deal with that. I wanted to tell you all about my book simply because, again, I feel as though when you're able to connect with people's emotions, you've done your job, particularly as being a writer. And again, this book is not just a book. It is a book that lets people know that you can get through. Even though you may have come from the dirt, you can get through. So, if you have liked or partially liked what you've heard, Atypical Journey can be found on Amazon.com. If you want an autographed copy, you can visit my website, and that's www.meloniesworks.com. That's MELONIS, works with an S.com. You can send me an email, and you can send it to meloniesbooks@gmail.com. That's MELONIS, books with an S, @gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening.